Welcome to this video. I wanted to share today my OCD story. OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder, and it is a very distressing, very debilitating thing to go through. I will put proper definition. I obviously want to define it properly, but the way I like to define it is that one day, kind of out of the blue, your brain just breaks and decides to produce crazy, disturbing scenarios that you start believing in. And that's truly what it was for me. Is I started producing extremely distressing images, scenarios, kind of stories, because it was very developed in my imagination, and I started believing them. And the more I tried digging and finding evidence that they weren't true, the more real they felt. And they truly felt so real. I cannot express this enough, but if you have OCD, you probably know that already. I've had OCD since the age of 17, so it's been about 5-6 years now. I'm 23, and yeah, I've seen so many people open up about what OCD looked like for them, and I'd love to do my share because I truly think it's not recognized as it should be by the general public and the media. I have struggled with pure OCD, struggled with taboo themed OCD, so a lot of taboo subjects that are hard to talk about, hard to share with anyone. Yeah, I hope that this can help someone out there. And I also would like, this will probably be in another video, but I have experience with ERP, exposure response prevention, and ACT. I'm almost done with ICBT, which is inference cognitive behavioral therapy, and I would love to share my experience with that because it's been very positive. I've learned so much more about OCD and what obsessions really are. Not that ERP and ACT didn't work, but I think ICBT provides a very holistic approach to understanding obsessions and really kind of targets the root of the doubting process. So yeah, I have experience with both, and I would love to share more about ICBT. So I'm just gonna get started. I'll kind of go through when, where, what was in. I have a few notes here just to keep me on track. I've tried to film this video multiple times, and hopefully this time it works out. I struggled with a little bit of anxiety throughout my childhood, early teens. I just worried way too much about random stuff, which now seems to make a lot of sense now that I'm diagnosed with OCD. But yeah, I was just a worrier, and I cared way too much about school and homework, and it would take up a lot of mental space. I just gave a lot of mental space to worry from the start. I had my first intrusive thought, so OCD related intrusive thought, at the age of 17. I was in high school, and I had a thought of insulting someone and saying something really mean, which I did not want to do. It was very out of character for me, and which is why the thought, brought so much distress, and I didn't know what to do with it. It was so unwarranted, and yeah, it came so out of the blue. This developed into false memory. So I would be walking around thinking I had insulted someone or said something extremely mean, racist. I mean, all the thoughts, the worst slurs, worst possible things to say would pop up in my mind. I was genuinely confused of what was real and what was imagined, and that got me stuck for a very long time until it developed into fears of typing something out on social media. So same deal. I would see something and have the worst possible thought of something I could type under that post, and then a few minutes later think I had posted it by accident, or that I was in denial. I was actively checking my phone, going through different histories. I was doing like crazy things on Instagram where I would like download my Instagram data, which would send me by email my comment history, because there wasn't an accessible way to see all the comments. So that was definitely a crazy compulsion. And yeah, I would mentally review a lot, my day, or the day before, or the week before. I was constantly in my head worried about it. I was terrified that someone would find out, someone would see the comment, someone would hear me say something so mean, and then I would be rejected, shunned. I would be like classified as like a bad person by my friends, which was kind of the opposite of my character. I was generally very liked, appreciated. I've always been very soft-spoken, which is the nature of OCD. It'll make you think you're the opposite of who you are. So that's kind of how it all started. And then my mind just like played with me. It's like, oh, this is bad, I'll give you worse. And then, you know, it developed into fears of like, this was during COVID, so I was doing a lot of Zoom in college, and it developed into like fear of undressing completely in front of the camera, or doing something completely inappropriate or saying something mean on the Zoom, saying something insulting. And same, it would turn into false memory. I thought that I had done something, and I was trying to do my best to find evidence that I hadn't. So I was checking people's reactions, how they interacted with me, if they interacted normally, if they still liked me. I was very driven by the fear of what other people thought of me. I think that's also where the fears underlying OCD came from, I guess. It's just this inherent like anxiety and fear and over reliance on what other people think of you. So yeah, that was really tough. This was early college, so I was 18, 19, and this is the hardest part, is that it eventually turned into POCD thoughts. So I was convinced that I had done something terrible, and I couldn't quite figure it out. I was constantly in like figuring it out mode, mentally reviewing my days, my weeks. And in doing that, I was, you know, reinforcing these scenarios in my head, because I was giving them more thought, I was giving them more fuel and like visualization, if that makes sense, as I was trying to figure them out, that it eventually made them feel so real. It's hard to describe that feeling. It's very, yeah, it's just horrible. Yeah, I knew all of these thoughts were very out of character, and I understood that, because that was why they were distressing to me, and then I was thinking about them was because I didn't want to think about them. And that's what OCD does. And because you have a negative reaction to them, your brain just keeps feeding you them, and it's a very vicious circle. So I knew these thoughts were completely out of character, but for some reason I thought I would be capable of snapping, losing it, and doing something crazy and forget about it or be in denial about it. So that was like my main thing for a while. It got to a point where it was so anchored within me. Like, I would go somewhere, everything held a little piece of OCD for me. I would go somewhere and be reminded of the obsession I had there, because my obsessions had a location, and so whenever I would go back to that location, I would get, again, just the rush of guilt and anxiety, and then go back in my head to try and figure it out. It's very hard to explain to someone who doesn't struggle with OCD, but you feel completely trapped. You did something wrong and that you need to figure it out right now, or you might, then you imagine these crazy consequences because you believe these thoughts and images so badly. So you just imagine going to prison, you imagine all kinds of crazy things. It's hard. It's a hard thing to go through, and I have so much love to give to people who struggle with this. It is such a miserable thing to go through, and the taboo aspect of OCD is just even more distressing and terrifying, and I don't even have the words to really describe it. The nature of OCD is making you so confused and doubt yourself so much that you no longer trust reality, you no longer trust yourself, and you rely on compulsions, so these safety behaviors, to make you feel better. And it's just a terrible, terrible, vicious circle. Your gut feeling is completely messed up because you are constantly being fed with false alarms. You can't trust your inner senses anymore because they all feel dangerous to you. The false alarm system is completely takes over your natural functioning and natural nervous system that is supposed to protect you. So it is very hard. And one more thing is, of course, OCD is ego dystonic, so it will attack what you care most about. If you're a mom and you care about your role as a mom and you care about your children, it will likely send you POCD thoughts, harm OCD thoughts. Yeah, it is extremely, extremely difficult to go through. I hope this helped someone out there, of course, and I will make another video about ICBT, inference cognitive behavioral therapy, and how I was able, I'm still in the process of learning, but it truly makes you resolve obsessional doubt, and truly you do not have to sit with uncertainty regarding taboo themes. I really want to emphasize that, because that's what you're taught to do in ERP, and ERP has many, many benefits. So I'm not saying ERP doesn't work. It did for me in some aspects, but I just felt that there was like an underlying thing that needed to be addressed, because the doubts kept coming back and I kept believing these things. ICBT really emphasizes the fact that OCD is a very imaginary based disorder, more than it is an anxiety disorder. Of course there is anxiety involved, but it's truly a cognitive dysfunction where they call this inferential confusion, where you are genuinely cognitively confused between imagination and reality. So ICBT really emphasizes that confusion and the role of imagination in producing that. And yeah, it's just, I found it very, very useful, so hopefully I'll make a video on that. So I'll say goodbye for now.